The government is distributing officials. 20 coins each. All the village girls are rushing to marry them. I didn't go. Because I've been reborn. I know that the destitute cripple no one wants will one day become the powerful regent who controls the court. He will betray my true feelings. Take many wives. Imprison me for 10 years. And humiliate me every night. I dared not buy him, I just wanted to live a peaceful life. But I never expected that very night. The village chief would knock on my door with a smile. Wan, do you want a husband or not? Clang! I slammed the door shut. Standing by the door, I was completely dazed. It must be a hallucination. How could I see Pei Jiutong again after being reborn? The village chief pushed the door open, looking at me with displeasure and confusion. Wan, what's the meaning of this? Do you find this man, who was rejected by others, unsuitable? It's nothing. The village chief will give you a discount, 10 coins. How about that? The village chief said, dragging me out the door. He pointed at the man leaning against the wall, weak and emaciated, speaking with great generosity. Aren't you the one who always wanted a handsome young man? Look at him. How handsome he is. Even though he's half dead and crippled, he'll be useful after a good wash. Pei Jiutong was badly injured. His face covered in dirt. His clothes in tatters. Looking utterly pitiful. He leaned against the wall, quietly raising his eyes to look at me. His eyes were innocent and fragile. But he stared at me so intensely that I felt a chill run down my spine. No. Not the village chief. No one will buy him. Why not just send him back to the authorities? I thought that if I didn't go, no one would buy Pei Jiutong, and he would have been sent back to the authorities by now. What? Why are you bringing him here? Qingchuan village was located on the remote border between two countries. Most of the able-bodied men had been forcibly conscripted into the army and never returned. The harsh weather and poor soil made it difficult for the elderly, women, and children to cope with the harsh taxes and grain levies. The government, short on money and grain, occasionally sent convicts exiled here to perform hard labor under the pretext of showing mercy to the people. 20 coins could provide a strong laborer for a family. It was a deal that made sense no matter how you looked at it. So whenever the government sent people, there was always a scramble. On this day in my previous life, I went too. I had no money, so I just went to see the commotion. But unexpectedly, I stumbled upon a great find for 10 coins. I bought a severely injured but incredibly beautiful young man with a limp. Everyone in the village laughed at me for being foolish. This man is so badly injured. Even if you bring him home, he might not even survive, let alone help with the work. And even if he does survive, with that cold, arrogant gaze, he won't be an easy person to deal with. I didn't listen. I brought him home and cared for him with great care. What no one could have imagined was that the little cripple not only survived but grew to love me deeply. He served me tea and water, helped me pass the imperial exams, and even achieved great deeds for me. Oh, no. To be precise, it wasn't for me, it was to deceive me. It wasn't until the day he married the regent's wife that I finally woke up to the truth. It turned out that his kindness toward me was merely a means to an end, to marry me so he could escape slavery, pass the exams, and leave Qingchuan village. What I thought was love and sweetness was, to him, nothing but endurance and humiliation. This man never loved me at all. What nonsense are you talking about? How could the government take back someone they abandoned? Even the village chief is worried. In previous years, everyone fought over them, and there was nothing left. No such troublesome matter. Who would have thought that this year there would be a change with a cripple? This man, even if we were to throw him away, we couldn't possibly send him back. After the village chief finished speaking, he looked up at me, Seeing that I didn't say anything, just staring blankly, he thought I was finding the price too high, and gritted his teeth. 5 coins. Not a penny less. It's not about the money. Village chief. 1 coin. Village chief. I really can't take this man. He. 1 The village chief interrupted me with an unhappy expression. When I took you in, I didn't say a single extra word. Did I? I immediately fell silent. The hardest debt to repay in this world is a favor. Once you start, you'll always be at a disadvantage. Over the years, I've practiced medicine and distributed medicine in the village, treating countless ailments and saving countless lives. Yet none of it could ever repay the village chief's kindness for taking me in during that snowstorm. All right, village chief. I sighed and agreed. I didn't notice that Pei Jiutong, leaning against the wall, lowered his eyes, revealing a look of relief. When he looked at me again, his eyes were fixed on me. The cloth bandage wrapped around Pei Jiutong's chest, and we were so close that our breaths seemed to mingle. Without looking up, I could feel his gaze on me. Pei Jiutong froze, his clean-shaven face showing a look of confusion. 1 I tied the cloth strip into a knot, cut off the excess with scissors, and stood up, creating some distance between us. His expression was calm. 1 isn't your name. Call me Miss Qin instead. But you bought me. Pei Jiutong's tone grew urgent. I should marry you. Humph. So eager? Are you afraid you can't marry me and escape slavery? Once a criminal is registered as a slave, they are destined to be slaves for generations. But now, as long as someone buys them out, they can be reclassified as farmers and regain their freedom. Such an opportunity is once in a lifetime. No wonder he's using every means possible to rush things. The candle flickered, and I looked into Pei Jiutong's pitch-black eyes. This man truly has a pair of exceptionally beautiful eyes. When he looks at me like this, it's easy to mistake his gaze for deep affection, as if I'm the only one in his eyes. Unfortunately, it's not real. I'll help you escape slavery, but not as your husband, as your older brother. From now on, we'll be siblings. Pei Jiutong immediately furrowed his brows, his voice low. Siblings? I lowered my brows and smiled. Yes. Siblings. In my previous life, I was foolish and overestimated myself. On the day of his wedding, I packed my belongings, left heartbroken, and prepared to return to Qingchuan village to spend the rest of my life. But he intercepted me with his troops and forcibly brought me back. He frowned, seeming extremely exhausted, and sighed. 1 You should understand that my regent queen cannot be a village woman. Don't argue with me. Come back with me. Besides the title of queen, I will give you everything. I naturally refused. But how could he listen? He imprisoned me in a secluded mansion on the outskirts of the capital, keeping me as an unnamed, unmarried concubine. He kept me there for 10 years, until his consort could no longer endure it and forced her way in, drowning me in a pig's cage. Pei Jiutong's chest rose and fell violently as he spoke in a cold, hard tone. I will not be your brother. I looked up at him in surprise. What? Are you still trying to use me as a plaything to satisfy your desires when you're lonely in the countryside? Pei Jiutong, you really are a piece of trash. It won't work. We can't be husband and wife. Why? Because I have a fiancé. I lowered my head and stroked the double-hearted knot at my waist. Everyone says he died on the battlefield, but I firmly believe he will return. Pei Jiutong's eyes suddenly trembled violently, and he sat up on the bed. His movements were a bit too forceful, and the freshly bandaged wound began to bleed again. But he didn't cry out in pain, he just stared at me intently, his eyes as cold and obsessive as they had been in his later years. You have a fiancé? I didn't flinch or look away. My expression calm. Yes. I do. I really do. His name is Xiao Heng, the eldest son of the wealthy Xiao family in the town. We met at school and grew up together, considered half-childhood sweethearts. 4 years ago, Xiao Heng was forced to enlist in the army. He never returned. Such things were common on the frontiers. And over time, an unwritten agreement emerged. If one did not return within 3 years, the marriage contract was nullified. Therefore, when I bought Pei Jiutong, there was nothing wrong with it. Later, as we spent more time together, I was moved by Pei Jiutong's exceptional acting skills and decided to leave Qingchuan village with him. When we left, Xiao Heng had not returned. Perhaps he truly is dead. But it doesn't matter. If I insist on waiting for him this lifetime, who can say anything to me? Either be siblings or continue as slaves, choose one. I said, raising an eyebrow. I tilted my head to stare at Pei Jiutong's gloomy face, mocking him in my heart. He was naturally displeased. After all, a sister couldn't be used for sexual gratification or to warm the bed. Indeed, after hearing my options, Pei Jiutong's thin lips tightened immediately. His gaze on me was suppressed, and the flickering candlelight reflected in his dark pupils. His chest rose and fell a few times. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and he almost forced out 2 words from his throat. Brother and sister. Not surprising at all. I slightly pursed my lips into a smile, put away the medicine box, and stood up to leave. As I reached the door, I turned back to him, rest early. Brother. Pei Jiutong's fists clenched tightly. The door closed, and the room fell into silence. Amidst the crackling of the candle flames, Pei Jiutong's gloomy, low voice echoed. Humph. Elder brother. That night, I dreamed of my previous life, when I was imprisoned. In the first half, I was trapped in Qingchuan village, a orphaned girl repaying a debt of gratitude. In the latter half, I was confined to a grand mansion, serving as Pei Jiutong's secret concubine, a lowly and forbidden woman. That short life, which lasted only 30-odd years, I had never seen the biting cold of winter, the refreshing rain, or the vast rivers and mountains of freedom. The sudden sound of knocking on the door pulled me back from my dream. As I opened my eyes, I felt a sense of weightlessness, as if I had been flying in the sky and suddenly landed. As I caught my breath, 2 words danced in my mind: freedom. Zwan zwan. I've cooked some porridge. Get up and have some. Pei Jiutong's voice came from outside the door. My pupils contracted slightly, and I made up my mind. Last night, you said you were the son of a duke whose family had been raided. The porridge is well cooked, soft, smooth, and fragrant. I raised my eyes to look at Pei Jiutong. So, you can read? Pei Jiutong nodded slightly. Yes. Excellent. I pointed to the bookshelf in the study. There's a book on herbal medicine on the shelf. Later, I'll trouble you to compare the text and illustrations in the book and pick out the ginseng, white atractalodes, and angelica from the medicine cabinet. Then place them one by one on the bamboo tray in the courtyard to dry. If I remember correctly, there will be an opportunity to make some money soon. I need to make money and leave this place. Pei Jiutong seemed taken aback by my arrangement. After a moment of hesitation, he looked embarrassed. But I'm still injured. And my legs. If you can limp to cook porridge, you can limp to dry herbs. In any case, I gave him a faint glance. I don't keep idle hands. I can't really let that saying come true. Can I? No village girl wants him, so they're giving him to me at a discount. He's scheming behind my back, pretending to be kind, using me as a stepping stone to improve his life. Isn't that exactly what the saying means? A defective product bought for a penny, I can't possibly treat him like a treasure. Just like I did in my previous life. Can I? He should do something for me too. Pei Jiutong's expression froze, looking rather complicated. I didn't bother to figure it out. Nor could I. So I just gave him a faint glance and stood up to leave. But my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Pei Jiutong looked at me nervously. Where are you going? I didn't say I wouldn't do it. I curved my lips into a smile and teased him with my words. With an extra mouth to feed and a leg that needs treatment. I have to gather herbs to earn money. Don't I? Older brother? What I didn't say was, escaping Qingchuan village and traveling the rivers and mountains, both of those require silver. Though I practice medicine in the village daily. It's a tiny place where you can walk from one end to the other in a few steps. And everyone knows each other. Patients often pay me with a block of tofu or a bunch of vegetables. Some even give me a sly smile and call it payment. So my poverty isn't an act. Pei Jiutong, limping on his injured leg, kept going in and out to dry the medicine. His lame figure looked so pitiful. I sighed, feeling a twinge of guilt. You're working so hard. Why don't you ask for something in return? Pei Jiutong stopped in his tracks. After a moment of silence, he spoke softly. Don't call me elder brother. Call me Jiutong. Okay? My conscience retracted. I pursed my lips. No. I didn't understand why he was so insistent on the title. As if calling him that would change our relationship in any way. After all, in my previous life, I had clung to him, calling him Jiutong over and over again. He would always frown and call me sentimental, telling me to call him brother in front of others. I hadn't forgotten. 5 or 6 days passed after that day. And the restless Xiongnu began to frequently raid the border. Many soldiers and townspeople were killed or injured. The 3 herbs used to stop bleeding, Baiji, San Qi, and Baiji, were in short supply. The prices in the market had skyrocketed by more than 20 times. Within 100 miles, only the herbs in my courtyard were the most abundant. However, I did not raise the prices. I wanted to make money, but I did not want to profit from the nation's misfortune. So I set a rule: I would only see a limited number of people each day. And I would not sell medicine or treat patients for anyone else. But even with that rule, I was so exhausted each day that I could barely get out of bed. After sending off the last patient, I didn't even bother to go back to my room. I collapsed onto the stone table in the courtyard and fell into a deep sleep. I slept soundly for an unknown amount of time. What woke me was the pressure on my lips. It seemed as though someone was sighing softly, gently pressing against my lips. Then they grew bolder, inch by inch, probing deeper. I frowned in annoyance. With a soft moan, I slowly opened my eyes. Pei Jiutong was standing beside me, his hand pressed against his nose, coughing lightly. Wan, it's time to eat. I blinked in confusion and touched my lips. For a moment, I couldn't tell if it was a dream or reality. But it must have been a dream. After all, Pei Jiutong wouldn't steal a kiss from me. This is the soup bones that the old cowherd from next door sent over. She said it's excellent for stewing. Why don't you try some? It's different from my previous life. The person who took on the role of cooking, changing the menu every day in hopes that the other person would take a bite, is no longer me. It's become Pei Jiutong. It simmered on low heat for 2 hours. Pei Jiutong served me a bowl of soup. His eyes fixed on me. The village chief was right after all. The little cripple truly had a striking appearance. After washing, his thick eyebrows and dark eyes, broad shoulders, and narrow waist were evident, even in the coarsest clothing. In just a few days, many of the girls who hadn't bought him regretted it deeply. But I didn't want to look at his face, which was full of falsehood. I just lowered my head and drank the soup silently, saying nothing. The expectation in Pei Jiutong's eyes eventually faded away. Wan, you're so kind to everyone else. Why can't you say a word to me? Is the soup good? The hot soup slid down my throat, and I raised my eyebrows sarcastically. It's good. So what? No one knows better than me that everything Pei Jiutong does comes with a price tag. I have to give something in return to deserve his flattery. Kind and gentle? In my previous life, I gave him more than enough of that. But did he care? So, Pei Jiutong swallowed hard, as if to comfort himself. As long as you like it. Those words were so fake they made me lose my appetite. I set down the porcelain bowl and turned my head to look at his leg, which I had broken and he was now nursing back to health. The 3 things this man wanted from me were simple. To be freed from slavery, to have his leg healed, and to take the imperial exams. The first 2 have already been achieved, but the exam is the only thing he's forgotten about, never mentioning it again. So what is he really after with all this kindness and tenderness he's been showing lately? What else could I possibly have that he wants? Furrowing my brows, I was about to speak when the door suddenly burst open. The knocking was urgent. Dr. Qin, please save my life. Save my master. Deputy General Xiao. There was clearly a notice on the door stating that no patients would be seen after the Shan hour. Why is someone knocking at the door during the Su hour? I remained seated, unwilling to move. This exception must not be made. Dr. Qin, I know you have your rules, but I truly have no other options. We are part of the garrison troops. We were ambushed by the Xiongnu. My deputy general was struck 7 times and is on the brink of death. All the pharmacies in the city are out of medicine. Only you can save him. My heart sank, and I suddenly stood up. Without a moment's hesitation, I hurried over and opened the door. A soldier defending the country must not die before my eyes. 2 soldiers with injuries on their faces carried a man covered in blood into the room. In the dimly lit room, the flickering candlelight illuminated the man lying on the bed, his breath faint. His face was covered in a mix of blood and mud, making his features unrecognizable. I clenched my teeth and tore open his black robe. A familiar red object fell from his chest. A heart-shaped knot. It was identical to the one hanging at my waist. Oh right. The soldier mentioned earlier said it belonged to Xiao Feng. Xiao Feng. My hands began to tremble, and I sucked in a sharp breath. The fact that I had been reborn was nothing compared to the shock of discovering that Xiao Heng was still alive. Fortunately, I had stockpiled enough medicinal herbs. Fortunately, my medical skills were advanced enough. Xiao Heng was saved. After a night of high fever, he regained consciousness the following afternoon. Wan. Xiao Heng leaned against the bed, smiling pale yet relieved. It's been so long. I really didn't know how to respond to those 4 words. The missed opportunities of the past life. The reunion of this life. We had so much to tell each other. Yet it seemed like only those 4 words could be said. Let me wipe your face. Don't turn your face away. I got up, picked up the towel from the basin by the bed, and wrung it out. Sitting back down by the bed, I gently wiped away the bloodstains on his face. I carefully wiped away the bloodstains on his face, revealing his handsome features. Xiao Heng lowered his eyes to look at his arms hanging around his neck and couldn't help but laugh softly. When we were kids, you used my clothes to wipe your nose. And now you're wiping my face. Does that even out? I wiped his cheeks carefully. This is different, you can't compare the 2. The door was gently pushed open. Pei Jiutong entered with food in his hands. Upon seeing the scene inside, his pupils contracted. His expression grew cold, and he limped over. Xiao Heng wasn't blind, he could tell something was off. Wan. Who is this? Pei Jiutong. I continued wiping without stopping. He's my older brother. Pei Jiutong snorted coldly, his gaze appraising Xiao Heng. But he asked me. What? Is this someone Wanwan knows? I stopped what I was doing and handed the double-hearted knot on the bedside table back to Xiaoheng. Then, I looked up into Pei Jiutong's eyes. Brother. This is Xiaoheng. My fiancé who returned after going missing. The food fell to the ground, making the sound of a porcelain bowl shattering. My wrist was suddenly gripped tightly. Pei Jiutong's expression changed drastically as he yanked me off the bedside. What did you say? My wrist hurt from being gripped so tightly. But I couldn't break free. The pain was so intense that I felt frustrated. And my eyes filled with disgust. I said, "This is Xiaoheng, my childhood friend and fiancé. Does my elder brother need me to repeat myself?" Pei Jiutong's pupils contracted sharply. As if startled by my gaze, he slowly released his grip on my wrist. He took a few steps back and took a deep breath. When he looked up again, his expression had returned to normal. "Congratulations, Wanwan. You've finally waited for him." He spoke with remarkable calmness and sincerity. It made my heart grow cold. This was Pei Jiutong. Pei Jiutong, who could hide his emotions so deeply and act so convincingly. Beneath the mask, no one knew whether he was holding a knife or candy. But I didn't want to know. Pei Jiutong didn't say anything else. After picking up the broken porcelain from the ground, he stood up and left. As the door closed, for some reason, a sense of unease welled up in my heart. It was based on my understanding of Pei Jiutong from my previous life. The calmer one appears after suppressing emotions, the more turbulent the waves beneath the surface. I always felt that Pei Jiutong wasn't emotionless at that moment. Rather, his gaze seemed like he wanted to kill me. Xiaoheng suddenly spoke up. I tilted my head, forcing a smile. "You must have seen wrong." He was clearly congratulating me. At least, on the surface. Xiaoheng raised an eyebrow. Really? It didn't look like congratulations to me. It looked more like... I interrupted him. "Why are you still keeping the love knot?" Xiaoheng's words abruptly stopped. A suspicious flush rose to his ears, and his expression grew awkward and uncomfortable. "It's at least a token of our love. Keep it as a memento." I chuckled. "You disappeared for 4 years without returning, and the engagement was annulled. What memento is there to keep? What 4 years? What annulled?" Xiaoheng immediately became serious, his expression tinged with suppressed sorrow. "Weren't you the one who wrote a letter saying you had found a better husband and didn't want me anymore?" After speaking, he lowered his voice and muttered softly. I almost died on the battlefield that day." I froze. What? What letter? The moment the words left my mouth, I suddenly realized something. I couldn't help but laugh coldly, already having an answer in my heart. "I really thought you had changed your heart." Xiaoheng looked at me with a look of resentment. The candlelight was dim, but the affection in the young man's eyes was clear. My heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, I realized that this reunion was actually unfair. Because for Xiaoheng, our separation had only been 4 years. The difference between being 16 and 20. I was still the childhood sweetheart he had known since he was a child. The person he had placed on the tip of his heart after his first love. His feelings were still stuck in the passionate phase of when he first fell in love with me. But for me, that was a love from a previous life. 30 years ago. Long since faded away. During those years when I moved forward on my own, I had already buried him in a corner of my heart called first love. And then, I fell deeply in love with someone else. Now, even if time could be reversed, how could I possibly bear the weight of his youthful devotion? Xiaoheng had fallen asleep. I rubbed my aching shoulders and returned to my own room. Little did I expect that as soon as I pushed the door open, a large hand suddenly reached out from inside, pulling me inside. My body collided with the doorframe, and I stared in shock at Pei Jiutong, who was holding me down tightly. "Pei Jiutong? What are you doing in my room?" "What? You don't call me older brother anymore? Pei Jiutong raised an eyebrow. His lips curled into a cold smile. He was completely different from the man I had seen in the past few days. It felt as though the man from my past life had returned. I took a deep breath and spoke in a low voice. Since you are my elder brother, you should not enter your younger sister's room without permission. Let me go and leave. Pei Jiutong smiled and nodded in agreement. Yes. An ordinary older brother shouldn't do that. But I never intended to be your older brother. Pei Jiutong laughed. Looking both shameless and at ease, my intentions aren't pure. As he spoke, he tightened his grip around my waist. His fingers gently traced the curve of my neck, following the pulse along my neckline. A chill crept up my spine. I even felt like he was sizing up where to bite me. To kill me outright. Wan, you shouldn't have made me angry. You're reborn too, right? Every hair on my body stood on end. I stared at Pei Jiutong in disbelief. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. How could this be? Humph. It's a bit sad that after being reborn, Wan chose not to buy me and no longer have any connection with me. It seems you truly hate and resent me. In my previous life, I was a fool. I didn't protect you or cherish you properly. It wasn't until after you died that I finally realized that all the fame and fortune I pursued in life couldn't compare to you. On the day I was reborn, I was overjoyed. Even if I discovered you had also been reborn and were desperately avoiding me, distancing yourself from me, and ignoring me, it wouldn't matter. It's only fair. I deserve it. I've prepared myself to spend the rest of my life chasing after you and making up for everything. I'm changing. I'm trying. Wan. Pei Jiutong's expression could no longer be described as obsessive. It was a twisted, calm madness. How could you have someone else? How dare you really think of being with someone else? The feeling of being confined was just like the imprisonment of my past life. I didn't even want to say another word to him, pushing his shoulders away with all my strength. But Pei Jiutong suddenly grabbed my wrist and pressed it against the door. The door panel clanged loudly. In the silent night, the sound was particularly clear. From the next room came Xiao Hang's confused voice. Wan? What's wrong? Before I could finish the word, my neck was covered in warmth. Pei Jiutong calmly sucked on my veins, laughing softly. Why aren't you answering? Wan? Tell him you're in your older brother's arms, being kissed and touched by him. Tell him your older brother has been lying in that bed every night lately, thinking of you to ease his longing and fall asleep. The heat in my body faded away in this extreme shamelessness. I trembled with anger. In this life and the last, how much more humiliation does he need to inflict on me? My neck was bitten hard, and Pei Jiutong held me tightly. Wan, be good. Let's start over. Tell him to leave. Enraged to the point of laughter, I retorted. Start over? How exactly do we start over? Does he think that by reincarnating, this country bumpkin could possibly be worthy of our esteemed regent? Does he think he won't have concubines and keep me locked away in a suburban villa? It's too ridiculous. How dare Pei Jiutong act so righteous? Do I hate him because he supposedly couldn't protect me? It was he who used me and deceived me. It was he who didn't love me yet locked me away to amuse himself. All the harm I've suffered was mostly caused by him. Pei Jiutong hesitated not even a moment. Wan. In my previous life, I never once intended to harm you. I didn't know you cared so much about status. I thought you understood my good intentions. The officialdom is treacherous, and your nature is so pure. Marrying you was the only way to protect you. But it's all in the past now. This lifetime, I only have you. I won't marry anyone else. If you don't like it, I won't take the imperial exams or enter the officialdom. We'll just live in Qingchuan village together. Forever. Is that okay? Wan Wan. Trust me one more time. Will you? No. Humph. What good intentions? I don't care. I won't accept it. I don't believe him. All I know is that the so-called protection he speaks of was nothing but exploitation and deception in our previous life. It was 10 years of being treated as a concubine and confined. A humiliation beyond words. If stabbing me was for my own good, then I'd rather he hadn't done it for me. I'm not worthy of such kindness. Wan Wan? My silence made Peijiotong grow tense. And he lowered his voice. Is that okay? Okay. My heart grew cold. I had no words for such shameless audacity. All that remained was a helpless cold laugh. Let's start over from the beginning. Upon hearing this, Peijiotong sighed deeply. He embraced me as if I were a precious treasure. His arms trembled slightly. Wan Wan, you've finally come back. Village chief. Do you want the son-in-law or not? What about Peijiotong? Now he's clean. No longer limping. And quite handsome. How many girls in the village are vying for him? He's the perfect match for our delicate sister. You saved my life. Money doesn't matter to me. It's all about repaying your kindness. How about a single coin? At the village chief's house. I placed Peijiotong's indenture on the table and smiled as I discussed the transaction with the village chief. Starting from scratch. I chose a life without Peijiotong. The village chief frowned and looked at me unhappily. Wan Wan. What's going on? How can you return someone you've already bought? I calmly took a sip of tea and slowly raised my eyes. I said it can be returned. So it can be returned. The village chief's expression darkened. About to scold me. I added slowly. Village chief. Do you know that Xiaoheng has returned? The village chief froze. I put down the teacup and smiled at the village chief. I remember that our Jiao Jiao sister also liked Xiaoheng back then. She even cried. Caused a scene. And threatened to hang herself. Demanding that I give up the engagement for her. After I refused her. I felt guilty for a long time. After all, Jiao Jiao had always been the type to take what she wanted and destroy it if she couldn't get it. But after I refused her that time, she surprisingly never caused trouble again. I suppose it was the village chief who came up with a clever plan to appease her. Right? The village chief forced a smile and nodded. Sweat beads formed on his forehead. I chuckled inwardly but kept a pure expression. Xiaoheng also said he'd like to come personally someday to thank the village chief and Jiao Jiao for their kindness. No. 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 There's no need. The village chief's face turned pale. And he quickly pulled out a coin to give me. I'll take it. Peijiotong. There's no need to trouble Mr. Xiao. Humph. He knows better than to offend the Xiao family. By the way, village chief. You saved my life back then. I'll repay you with my daughter's hand in marriage. That should even things out. Right? Why not just draw up a contract? We'll be even. And we'll have no further connection. That way. You won't regret it later and come bother me. The village chief's lips trembled. His expression changed several times before he finally couldn't hold back and cursed. Ingrate. When I returned home, Peijiotong was in the courtyard drying white atractalodes and ginseng. Xiaoheng was lying on a lounge chair nearby, basking in the sun. The scene looked harmonious. But in reality, the conversation was far from friendly. I'm not her brother. Peijiotong spread the ginseng on a sieve and spoke first. Xiaoheng opened his eyes. His voice lazy. It's clear you have something to say. Just say it. Peijiotong spoke succinctly. Make your demands. Anything is fine. I just want her. Xiaoheng laughed. Coincidentally, I only want her too. Peijiotong twisted his lips. His words vile. Even if she was with me first? My face turned pale instantly. My fists clenched at my sides. And my body trembled. Shameful. How could something from a previous life be brought up with someone in this life? Humph. Xiao Heng furrowed his brows. A sense of shame swept over me completely in that moment. Only a worthless man would use a woman's chastity as a bargaining chip. Is being the first man so great? Was she your first woman? Pei Jiutong came from a distinguished family. Concubines were a necessity. How could I be the first? Pei Jiutong's face darkened, and the earlier smugness had vanished. Oh, really? Then how dare you boast about it? Xiao Heng sneered with disdain. Not even the first time could be saved for the woman he loved. How shameful. I was so shocked I couldn't breathe. Perhaps it had been too long since we last met. Or maybe Xiao Heng now appeared too composed and aloof on the surface. I had truly forgotten how reckless and bold he was as a child. Famous for his sharp tongue. These words left Pei Jiutong's face ashen, as if a fight was about to break out at any moment. Xiao Heng's hands were injured. Fighting would be disadvantageous. I hurriedly made some noise and took a couple of steps forward. The two in the courtyard both changed their expressions. Pei Jiutong smiled at me first. Wan. The herbs are almost done drying. We need to add some more. It's okay. No need to add more. I've already earned enough money. Originally, I planned to save up 100 taels for the village chief to repay the kindness of saving me before leaving. But now, there's no need. The debt of gratitude has been repaid. We owe each other nothing now. The 20 taels I have are enough for me to take the first step on my journey. Besides, I have my medical skills. If I run out of money later, I can earn it along the way. Sigh. It's all my fault for being injured in both arms and unable to help. Xiao Heng, who was lying on the recliner, suddenly sat up straight and sighed deeply. You've really caused trouble for our elder brother. With such a capable elder brother, Wan and I will be so fortunate in the future. Pei Jiutong narrowed his eyes, his gaze sharp as a knife as he fixed it on Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng didn't flinch, returning his gaze with equal intensity. Xiao Heng. I hurried forward and stood between the two of them. Your injury isn't serious. Let's return to the camp today. My elder brother's foot injury hasn't healed yet, so I'll escort you back. Pei Jiutong raised an eyebrow and gave Xiao Heng a sly smile. Xiao Heng choked, took a deep breath, gave me a meaningful look, then turned and went back into the house. I couldn't help but shake my head, but my waist was suddenly embraced from behind. Pei Jiutong rested his chin on my shoulder and whispered, "Come back soon." I lowered my eyes and didn't respond. Go to the village chief's house in the evening. He's changed your household registration. You're no longer a slave, but a farmer. Remember to pick it up. Pei Jiutong nodded obediently. All right. Xiao Heng led the way, and I escorted him back to the military camp. The border region was infested with spies from the enemy nation, so our military camp was stationed in an extremely secluded location. Without a guide, ordinary people wouldn't even be able to see the camp gates. I managed to see it this time, and I even walked in openly. This medicine needs to be changed every 2 days. Remember to eat light meals. Make sure not to get the wound wet. Also, avoid strenuous exercise to prevent the wound from reopening. As I helped Xiao Heng change his medicine, I carefully instructed him on all the precautions. But after a while, I didn't hear Xiao Heng say a word. When I looked up, I saw him staring at me with a somber expression. Must you go? Does our engagement no longer hold? How could it not? Xiao Heng? I untied the love knot at my waist and tried to place it in his hand. But Xiao Heng clenched his fist tightly, refusing to take it. I sighed helplessly. Are you abandoning your aspirations to become a deserter and no longer fight on the battlefield? Or should I give up my dreams, stay alone in an empty room, and become a wife who waits for you day and night? I've already lived like this for 10 years in my previous life. I really don't want to live like this anymore. I just want to be free. Xiao Heng's expression darkened. I smiled and reached out to pry open his palm. Two people with conflicting aspirations can only find peace by forgetting each other in the vast world. Xiao Hang's fist suddenly relaxed. But he didn't take the knot. Instead, he tightly wrapped his hand around mine. We are not conflicting. Wan. When the country is at peace and no longer needs me to fight, I will accompany you to explore every corner of this world. As long as you are willing to wait. Xiao Hang's eyes were bright and black. The seriousness in his gaze was unmistakable. Just like 4 years ago. I lowered my eyes, filled with guilt. This misunderstood childhood romance. Separated by 30 years. I don't love him. Seeing my expression, Xiao Heng tooted and adopted a carefree demeanor. Even after you rejected me, I waited for you for 4 years. It's only fair that you wait for me now. Isn't it? Moreover, this engagement can't be nullified. I demand special treatment. If there's someone by your side in the end, I must be the first choice. If I'm dead by then, you can choose someone else. I was speechless. After a moment, I sighed helplessly. Where did you learn such a shameless trick? Xiao Heng curled his lips. Just say whether you'll wait or not. I left the military camp the next morning. Xiao Heng's stubborn temper flared up. And he didn't come to see me off. He said, we'll meet again someday, there's no need for a farewell. Just wait here for me to come find you. Don't go too far. The path down the mountain was lined with green leaves. I looked down at the love knot still tied around my waist and smiled softly. I didn't notice that ahead on the path, Pei Jiutang stood there like a god of death, radiating furious energy, until I collided with his chest and he grabbed my neck with great force. Qin Wan, how dare you? How dare you? Pei Jiutang's eyes were bloodshot, and his hands gripping my neck were clenched tightly. Yet they trembled violently. I kept slapping his hands, but it was no use. Breathing grew increasingly difficult, and my face began to flush red. Just as I was about to suffocate, Pei Jiutang suddenly grabbed my neck and pulled me forward, kissing me wildly. Through the gap between our lips, I finally managed to inhale a breath of fresh air. My chest rose and fell violently as I breathed greedily. My lips were roughly bitten, and Pei Jiutang devoured me with a ferocity that seemed as though he wanted to swallow me whole. But just as I was about to collapse, he released me. Qin Wan, do you have any feelings for me? I was eagerly waiting for you to come back, only to be told that you sold me. Is this the fresh start you wanted? A fresh start without me? Is that it? Yes. I covered my neck and took a deep breath, looking at him with no trace of warmth in my eyes. Does it feel good to be used? After fantasizing about a future with someone, only to discover it was all a lie, does that feel good? In our past life, wasn't that exactly how you treated me? Pei Jiutang's body trembled violently, his clenched fists causing the veins on his knuckles to bulge. His eyes were filled with pain, but he was powerless to ease it. Finally, he let out a bitter laugh. You're just taking advantage of the fact that I can't bring myself to hurt you. That's why you can hurt me so freely. Wan, don't push me. You know I'm not a good person. His tone was one of vulnerability he had never shown in either of their lifetimes. But it made me tense up as if facing an enemy. I dared not relax even for a moment. Don't push me either. I just want to leave you. Pei Jiutang looked up and laughed, but a tear slid down the corner of his eye. He sniffed, wiped away the tear, and laughed bitterly. You really know how to make me suffer so much. Wan, why? I've already explained everything. Why do you still want to leave? Wan, don't you love me? How could you bear to abandon me? I know I was wrong, but I'm trying to make it up to you. I'm changing. Please wait for me. Okay? We've finally been reborn. Can't we really erase the past and start over? I looked at the tears in his eyes and shook my head slowly. No. It can't be erased. Not all regrets and apologies can earn forgiveness. Pei Jiutong's gaze turned harsh as I shook my head. He suddenly let out a cold laugh, his lips curling into a chilling smile. All right. You don't want to play nice, do you? Wan. You're forcing me to act this way. After speaking, Pei Jiutong's expression hardened. He raised his hand to strike my neck. But my movements were faster. A flash of cold steel. The dagger I had been clutching plunged into his left shoulder. Blood gushed out in a torrent. If I had known you had been reborn, I should have killed you the day I bought you back. Pei Jiutong let out a bitter laugh. His face contorted with pain. He wiped his face decisively. His eyes filled with hatred. Am I really that unforgivable? In my previous life, I gave you everything except my freedom. I've done everything I could. What more do you want from me? I have no choice. You gave me everything? Hearing this, I could only laugh. This man is still claiming to love me and protect me? Pei Jiutong, have you ever considered that you imprisoned me in the suburbs of the capital and dared not marry me because you couldn't face yourself? You don't love me as much as you claim. You're just unwilling to let go because my love for you is pure and free of ulterior motives, something no one else can offer you now that you're in a position of power. But you also dare not face the truth. Dare not marry me into your household. Because my very existence would constantly remind you. As the regent prince, you were once a husband bought back by a village woman for 10 coins. You once flattered and ingratiated yourself with this lowly village woman to achieve your goals. Therefore, you can't bear to let me go. Yet you dare not face me. You can only confine me outside, not even granting me the title of wife. You don't care whether I feel humiliated. He doesn't care if I'm willing to be confined. He took away my freedom to live as a human being and betrayed the sincere feelings I had for him. He trampled on my self-respect and my life. My life is nothing but breathing, nothing else. Yet he dares to say, with a straight face, that he has given me everything except his freedom. Gripping the dagger tightly, I looked deeply into Pei Jiutong's eyes. Wait until you lose your freedom for 10 years. Wait until you feel that same despair and resignation day after day. Then come back and talk to me about forgiveness. Actually, what I meant was, there is no possibility of forgiveness. Our relationship isn't something that can continue peacefully just because we forgive each other. But Pei Jiutong looked like a drowning man who had finally grabbed a lifeline. His eyes brightening. He covered his bleeding chest and actually smiled. All right. 10 years. Later, I never saw Pei Jiutong again. Nor did I see Xiaoheng. I traveled the country, practicing medicine and roaming freely through famous mountains and rivers. As if still afraid, I never stayed in any one place for long. But in the 4th year of my journey, I came to the marriage bridge in Xuanzhou town. The bridge was adorned with red ribbons tied by lovers making wishes. Some were new. Some had faded so much that the words were no longer visible. I stood on the bridge from dawn until dusk. Until the moon was bright and even the people below the bridge who had released lanterns had all gone home. I finally sighed softly. Xiaoheng, I kept my promise. You can't blame me anymore. The 4-year pact was a special favor I granted Xiaoheng. On the day I left the military camp, we agreed to meet at the marriage bridge in Xuanzhou 4 years later. If the war had ended by then and he was still alive, we would set off together. But today, he did not come. Lowering my head in silence, I looked at the faded red ribbon tied around my waist, my eyes trembling slightly. I would rather believe that the war in the north hasn't ended yet. I refuse to consider the second possibility. Turning around, I stepped off the bridge one step at a time. Clop, clop, clop. The sound of galloping hooves echoed from the distance. I suddenly turned around and saw Xiaoheng, dressed in black, riding toward me on his horse. He looked bold and reckless. The horse came to a halt, and Xiao Heng dismounted, standing below the bridge, breathing heavily. He shook his head at me without speaking. You've nearly killed me. Qin Wan Wan. Next time we make plans, we really need to ask in advance. Do you know that Xuanzhou City has 12 bridges? All nicknamed bridal bridges? I nearly died trying to find you today. I stood on the bridge, looking down at the sweat on his forehead. I couldn't help but laugh. Later on, I can't remember if it was 10 years later or how many years later, Xiao Heng and I rode north on horseback, planning to go see the snow-capped mountains. As we passed through the outskirts of the capital, a vague figure appeared, following us from behind. Neither too close nor too far. It kept following us. He didn't approach us, nor did he retreat. If he wanted to follow, let him follow. Xiao Heng pulled me closer and kissed me on the lips. Having an extra witness to our happiness isn't so bad, is it? I tilted my head and looked at him. Do you know who he is? Xiao Heng snorted. You don't know? Well, I do know. But it doesn't matter. But speaking of which, he's such a liar, Xiao Heng suddenly added. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. What do you mean? You said he was your first man, making me jealous for so long. Turns out, forget it. It was me. I lowered my eyes and touched my nose, blushing. Are we leaving yet? Let's go. Let's take the wife and go.